it's Ashleigh from Sweet Dreams Bake Shop. And I know I've been doing a couple treat box series lately, but I haven't really talked about the specifics of treat boxes. And more specifically, I haven't really talked about the ins and outs of how to sell them at your bakery. Now, this is going to be more focused on home baking businesses, but I'm sure that you commercial bakeries out there might be able to glean some information from this as well. So let's get into it. The first thing that's going to make your treat box really stand out among other treat boxes is theming your treat box. I recently sold my treat boxes, which I normally don't do, but I just had so much leftover stock and it was way too much to just give away. So I did end up selling the treat boxes for a lot cheaper than I would have, but I was just selling to family and friends. So it wasn't as if I was selling to the public. If I was selling to the public, I would have done these differently. But I did get some feedback about the theming of my treat box. A lot of people were messaging me and commenting to me how much they loved the theme of my treat box. Now, the treat box that I'm talking about is my sweater weather treat box. And I feel like this sold out so quickly, not only because I don't really sell my baked goods, so it's become a little bit exclusive completely by accident, but it's also because the theming of the treat box is really specific to right now. Whenever you're choosing your theme for your treat box, looking at the seasons is a really great option. We're starting to think less about going swimming outdoors and more about hunkering down and going back to school and putting on those sweaters. So I really tried to capitalize on the things that I knew are really trending right now here where I live. That is also very important because obviously there's places in the world where the seasons are completely different. So here where I live, we are going into fall. And what is big in fall right now? Obviously, PSLs, they're huge. So I really wanted to capitalize on that cozy feeling, that pumpkin spice latte that everyone's going out to get. And I really tried to theme my box to that. So these are the items that I included in my box.
When you're trying to sell your box, it's really important that you use very enticing language when describing your baked goods. This alone will really help you make a sale.
Now, of course, if you want to go and see how those are made and what I did to make those, then go ahead and check out that right-hand link in the corner. So I've talked about how jumping on trends is really hard to do, and it's hard to dictate what people are going to like. But I do feel like I've been around long enough to see that this is probably going to be popular. So the theming of my box not only relies on what the actual things look like, but the flavor profiles as well. And that was a lot of cinnamons, some pumpkins, just the things that make people think of fall. Theming your box is a really great way to kind of draw people in, especially those customers that weren't even thinking about purchasing your stuff. Now that whole theming concept kind of segues right into that stock versus custom concept. And I know I've done a lot of videos where I talk about stock product as opposed to custom product. So this is more of a pre-order versus stock product because you're not really making a custom box to somebody's specific specifications. You get to fully decide what is going in this box. But if you kind of make up a sample box, or you don't even have to make it, you can just say, I'm going to be making the following things, and then you can have people do a pre-order. Now, pre-ordering systems are great because you're not going to overmake. You're going to make the right amount. Now you can do it where you have your pre-orders, and you could also do it where you do have some stock left over. Obviously, if people pre-order, it's going to be a bit cheaper, maybe $5 to $10 even cheaper if they pre-order. That's very enticing for people. And then obviously for the stock orders, you're going to be charging full price, or maybe you're charging an extra $10 on top of that, however you see fit. Now, this is where the part of the video is really specific to at-home bakers as opposed to bakers that own a storefront. Now, because we really only have one little kitchen space and there's only one of us, we don't have staff to actually help us, you really have to plan out very carefully what it is that you are going to be making. What are you going to be putting into your box? So I'm going to go over a quick list of do's and don'ts for the types of things that you should be including. Here are the recipes that I really think should never go into a treat box, and I'm gonna go into detail about why. Number one, meringues. Now, meringues are great. They're awesome to kind of convey a theme as well. However, they wilt really easily, and chances are if you put that meringue in a box with something like a cupcake, it's going to start absorbing some of that moisture and your meringue will inevitably wilt. Even if you package it off into a piece of plastic, it could still wilt. Now, if you really, really want to do them, I'm sure you could come up with a system where you kind of package it completely separately, but I say it's one of those things that not a lot of people love meringues, so I really wouldn't include it in there. The second thing is anything with an alcoholic buttercream. Now, if you're doing an alcoholic buttercream, but you're actually burning off the alcohol, then that's completely fine. But if you're just going to straight up pour some Jack Daniels into a buttercream mixture that's done American buttercream style, then I really would warn against doing something like that. You want to make the box accessible to everybody. The next thing I would avoid putting in the box is anything that is really super temperature controlled. So for example, if you were making a pavlova, or maybe you made a pie, but you wanted to include some whipped cream in there. And the reason that I say that is sometimes the refrigerator can suck out some of the moisture from your baked goods. And a lot of baked goods actually don't do well in the refrigerator. They do a lot better in room temperature. So I would avoid putting anything in your box that needs to be refrigerated in there. Things that I would include in my box for sure is going to be some sort of cookie variant or cake, and something special like a macaron or something that's going to give your box value. You want to be able to give your box value. And that brings me to my next point. Giving your box value is super, super important. So what I mean by that is you want to include some cheaper things inside of your box. Now, because pricing is a little bit trickier, it's a little bit different than just simply charging for every single thing that's in the box at face value and then adding it up. You can kind of play around with the pricing a little bit more. What you need to do though is you need to include things that have value and things that are maybe a bit cheaper and easier for you to make. For example, in my fall treat box, I included oatmeal cream pies. Super cheap and super easy to make. But I also included a bunch of macarons, which are a lot more expensive to make and they're a lot more difficult to make as well. They're also a little bit special. You want to have something in that box that's going to be just a little bit more special than just going to the grocery store and picking up a dozen cupcakes for like $5. Something that's really going to bring your treat box to the next level is packaging. Now, for my first treat box that I kind of did on the channel, which was my Star Wars treat box and my chocolate treat box, I just put them in plain bakery boxes. But let me show you the difference between just having a plain bakery box and having it in this really nice box with a clear opening on the front and a bow. Do those things cost a bit more? Sure, I think it costs about $1 more to do something that looks like this. But it is so much more attractive, and people love things that look attractive and things that look like they taste even better. When you have that bakery box that's just plain white and it's closed, you really can't see what the contents are inside. But for the other box, you can clearly see what's inside there, and people really love this. Also, it has the exact right depth for each treat. So when you're creating the treats, when you're thinking about what you're going to put in there, you really want to make sure you do think of packaging and what's going to fit in there. Now, there have been several times that I've gone to pick up really delicious treats from a bakery, but sometimes it's not packaged correctly and then it's sliding around in the box, and then by the time you get home, your eclair is mushed against the side with a croissant stuck into it. And it's not like I wouldn't go back to that bakery necessarily, but that would be one of the things that might turn me off of bringing that to a dinner party, for example. I might say, oh, that is really delicious, but every time I bring it home, it looks like an earthquake happened in the box. Whereas more expensive places, for example, Lotterie macarons. Of course, we all know that those are very, very expensive macarons, and you're probably wondering why I would bother buying them when I can make macarons myself, but I did want the experience, and the experience, although expensive, was topped off beautifully because of the packaging. That packaging just makes the product seem so much more luxurious than maybe it really is. get down to the specifics of pricing.
This time around, I made all of the boxes relatively the same. Each box came with one slice of apple pie. And I will say, if you're doing something like pie where it comes from a large chunk of something that you're cutting off, you do want to make sure that you measure it by weighing it in grams or ounces. Each box either came with a choice of 2 pumpkin spice latte cupcakes or 1 pumpkin spice latte cupcake with 1 giant chai macaron. All boxes came with at least 6 macarons as well, and each box came with a sweater weather themed cookie. The final treat to go in the box was 1 oatmeal cream pie. So just looking at the product pricing itself, it would be anywhere from $34 to $40 approximately in value. Packaging is not as simple as it may look like. For example, I did have to make sure that I had an extra piece of parchment paper lining all of that apple pie, which took quite a long time. And if you don't do it that way, then you're obviously maybe buying individualized pie slice containers, which again is going to cost more money. On top of that, we have the actual box itself that you have to fold, and we also have the ribbon. So keeping that in mind, I think the estimated value of this box is around $45. But of course, if you're going to be selling multiple boxes, you can afford to lower that price just a little bit. I highly recommend that you do lower that price just a bit because you want to make the idea of the treat box enticing. Why would somebody buy a treat box? Because buying things and more products altogether is obviously going to be a bit cheaper.
So I hope that helps you jump on the new treat box trend. I know I keep saying that this treat box thing is a trend, which I know people have been picking up multiple baked goods from places for years. I think it's a new thing to have things really themed and cohesive. So that's what I mean by trendy. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you can be part of the Sweetie fam. Right now, I'm uploading daily, so make sure you hit that notification bell so you know when I upload. Also, be sure to comment, request, or ask a question. I love hearing from you guys. Bye!